You were born in what year again?
1949.
Well, let me ask you this: when did you first start seeing, as a young African American boy, that life was different for you than everybody else or the white people in
Well,
Mississippi?
I started seeing it because my dad had a landscaping business, and I really came from money. All my dad's brothers and sisters had their own business. So my dad had a landscaping business. His sister and her husband, they had a milk dairy. My auntie had a store. My other aunties were piano teachers and choir directors and voice coaches. So my dad had a landscaping business. We worked for all the rich white people, ex-slave owners' daughters and sons, right? They had these
Literally.
literally, they had these big, huge houses. My dad took me on my first landscape job. I was 6 years old. Cause back then people started working. You start working early as a kid. You talking about the 50s, okay? So that being said, I started seeing the difference between how white people live and how we lived in my neighborhood.
Yes.
I mean, I came from a decent house, but back then most blacks was poor. We didn't have city water. Everybody either had a well or either a pump. Okay, we had a pump. You go out there, you start it up, had the engine on it, and once the pressure got up, then you pump it like this. Wasn't no bathrooms back then. We all had outhouses. You took a bath in a number 3 tin tub. Okay, and so I came from a family of 12, 6 boys and 6 girls. But back then, wasn't no natural gas. Wasn't no TV. TV came out in 1948, a year before I was born. We got our first TV in 1957, but we didn't have time to watch because my dad was a workaholic. Okay, so my mom was a housewife. So back then, I was fortunate because my dad had a landscaping business. I worked a whole week with my dad, sun up, sun down. I only got $25, and I knew not to ask my dad for no more money because the first thing he was gonna tell me, "You're up under my roof. I'm feeding you. Take what I give you."
Sir.
But back then, everything was cheap. You know, a pack of cigarettes cost $25. I mean, 25 cents. 25 cents. Gas like 17 cents a gallon. A hamburger 25 cents. So my dad told me how to handle the money. Okay, you just take $5 for yourself, divide the other 20 up, and save it, put it in a shoebox or a cookie jar or whatever. So back then it was all they had bathrooms that had white and color. Water fountains were white and color. Back then you couldn't look at a white woman if she was black. The prime example, Emmett Till came down from Chicago, 1955. I was 6 years old. Back then everybody had radios. So you got the basketball game on radio, baseball game, football game. I think Jackie Robinson had came along. Will Chamberlain, Bill Russell came along in 1957. Will Chamberlain came along in 1959. They kind of broke the color barrier. But they were still being called niggas and stuff, even if they was good. Give an example, Bill Russell stayed in Cape Cod, and he won 8 championships in a row. And the white,
Celtics, right? For people that know who Bill Russell is.
Right, they didn't start winning until Red Auerbach drafted them. Red Auerbach didn't see no color. Okay, Vince Lombardi didn't see no color. I knew Al Davis personally. He started going down south drafting black players from the SWAC, Grambling, Jackson State, and everything. He was all about winning. So back then, like I said, you couldn't go to a restaurant, you couldn't stay in a hotel. Okay, and at the end of the day, man, if you went to a hamburger stand, you ordered at the front, but you gave your food at the back door.
Wow.
That's how it was back then.
And at the time, did you think it was just normal? Did you ever question it? Ask your daddy, like, "Hey, daddy, why do we have to go here?"
Yeah, I questioned him. I'm gonna tell you why. I was hearing my dad say, "Yes to no, sir." That was mandatory down south if you was black. You got to say yes to and no, sir, to the white man. And I wonder why do we have to say it? But all the white kids, the white people that my dad worked for, their kids would call my dad William, but we had to call their moms and dad Mr. and Mrs. So I couldn't comprehend that. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to figure out why. I mean, what's the difference between them and us? So that really, really resonated on me. That why are they better than us? And they making money off us because back then Mississippi was all cotton. White people make their money on cotton. They had plantations. Back then they had sharecroppers. Matter of fact, give you an example. I went to my first class reunion in 1988. A bunch of my classmates, I never knew where they lived at. They lived in the country. I lived in town, right? So one of my classmates said to me, he said, "Vernell, was you are rich?" That's why. I wasn't rich. My dad, we had a landscape business. They said, "Well, you go to Sousa school every day." We went well. And I told them, I swear, here's the deal. All the white people work for, they had kids our age, right? They go down to New Orleans. They had a store called Goshaw on Canal Street. Buy their kids a suit. Their kids to my size. So they wear at one time to give it to us. So we was always clean. Okay, so I didn't realize they were sharecroppers. If you don't know what sharecropping is, you stand on the white man's land. When they said 40 acres on the mule, They meant that. The white man had for he would give you 40 acres for the mule. You planted his food. He got most of the money. He gave you the crumbs. So they made their money off cotton. Okay? And back then, man, it wasn't nothing for them to kill a black guy like it was nothing. They used to have night riders to ride through my neighborhood. Night riders are just like this. Back in the day, all the smart black people kept the kids on the back porch when they got dark, right? So you have white boys in the truck, 3 in the front, 4 in the back, with baseball bats, chains, and guns. They had a chase car behind them with 6 white boys in it. They would ride down through these country roads, and the first black they sing, if you didn't haul ass, you was gone. Mm-hmm. So, you know about Emmett Till, Medgar Evers, all the guys got killed. Back then it was way more than that, but it wasn't publicized. Right. So that's the kind of shit we have to go through, man.
If you guys enjoyed this clip and want to see some more, click right here. If you guys want to see the full interview, click right here. Thanks for watching.